As we're getting closer to Shvii, Shel Pesach, the 7th day of Pesach, the final Chag, the night that we're going to celebrate the miracle of the splitting of the sea. So I want to look a little closer at the section of the Haggadah that spoke about it that we read just a couple nights ago, with a three-way opinion about the miracles that took place at the Yam Suf. Because according to the Haggadah, while the 10 Makot were awesome, they were unbelievable, but 7 days later, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu split that sea, the revelation that took place, the Kriyat Yam Suf, it becomes one of the pillars of Jewish emunah, what it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls nature, can break nature, and the images that they said that the shifcha, that the simple maidservant saw at the Yam was a level of nevuah that was so great and that was so awesome. So I want to speak a little bit about what took place over there, or a little bit. Let's do our theme this year seems to have been numbers. So let's look at the actual Haggadah. So we had a three-way machloket. Rabbi Yossi Aglili is the first opinion. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says, okay, we had 10 makot in Mitzrayim, and then we had 50 makot by the Kriyat Yam Suf. He said, and it's based on the Psukim where it says in Mitzrayim, the makot, or at least one of the makot, one makkah was referred to as the etzba, as the finger of Hashem. But by the Kriyat Yam, by the Yam Suf, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu split the sea with his yad, with his full hand. So a full hand has 5 fingers. So you had yourself the one finger symbolizes the makot of Mitzrayim, and then the 5 fingers will symbolize the makot on the Yam Suf. So he says there were 10 makot in Egypt, and therefore there will be 50. Alayam laku chamishim makot, and by the Yam we have the Hamishim. We mentioned in the past the Hamishim, hinting to the Sha'ar Nun, the 50th gate, the revelation that took place over there. Yam is gematria 50. The mystery behind it is gematria 50. Okay, so we have ourselves the 10 and the 50. Comes along Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Eliezer comes along and he says, no, we have to multiply all of our makot by 4. And 4, we know that's the magic number of Pesach, the 4 questions, the 4 sons, the 4 cups of wine. 4 is the magic number. So says Rabbi Eliezer, we have to do 4 times the makot based on the psukim over there. Check out the Haggadah. And so therefore we're going to have 40 in Mitzrayim, and then we're going to have 200 by the Yam Suf, and we already spoke about in a previous recording that the 4 actually correspond, according to the Haidah, to the name Ehiyeh, the Aleph, the Hey, the Yud, and the Hey. Those 4 letters of Hashem's names are involved in all that was taking place in the Geulah from Mitzrayim. Okay, that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. So now I want to go to Rabbi Akiva and a little bit of Rabbi Yossi as well, because Rabbi Akiva comes along and he says, no, the number to multiply by is not 4, but rather it's 5. He learns the same Pesukim as Rabbi Eliezer, but he learns the multiplying number is 5. And therefore, there was 50 already taking place in Mitzrayim, and then there's 250 by the Yam Suf. So I want to speak a little bit about Rabbi Akiva and why he's using 5 as the multiplier. And also we can go back to Rabbi Yossi as well, because Rabbi Yossi also has 10 and 50 as well. So let's talk a little bit about the number 5, because normally we think of Pesach as the number 4, but the truth of the matter is there appears to be a secret, a hidden 5 throughout the whole story. So I saw this idea, I actually saw this parts of this idea in many different Sfarim, but most recently I saw it in this year's Mishpacha magazine by Daniel Gladstein. I also saw it Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Alav Shalom, says a lot of these ideas as well in an older Dvar Torah. So we're going to speak about the secret 5, the hidden 5 that takes place on Pesach. Because what do we know? So let's go to the basics. So what do we have? First off, we know the 4 cups of wine. We have 4 cups of wine symbolizing the 4 statements of Geulah, the 4 statements of redemption. It also kind of symbolizes, we mentioned in the past, the 4 Galiyot we're going to have afterwards, the Shibud Malchiyot. But we have ourselves the 4 statements in the Torah. When Hashem says we're going to take us out of Mitzrayim, this is in Perek Vav, in Shemot, Pesukim Vav and Zayin, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, V'otzeti etchem mitach sefel Mitzrayim, V'otzeti, I'll take you out, V'yitzalti etchem ma'avodatam, I'll save you, V'ga'alti etchem, V'lakachti etchem. So we have V'otzeti, V'yitzalti, V'ga'alti, V'lakachti. We have ourselves 4 words of Geulah. But, says Rabbi Gladstein, says Rabbi Sachs, say many others, there's actually a 5th language of Hashem taking us out. In the next pasuk, in pasuk Chet, over there it says, "Ve'eveti etchem el haaretz asher nasati et yadi letet ota leAvraham Yitzchak uLeYaakov," and I'm going to take you out and I'm going to bring you to the land, the special land, Eretz Yisrael, that I had promised, that I had spoken to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And atati ota lachem morasha ani Adonai, and I'm going to give it to you as an inheritance. This is our morasha. So there's a 5th language, ve'eveti, and it's a hidden 5, but that hidden 5 already is more like Geula. We're going to see that the hidden 5s throughout the Haggadah kind of symbolize something a little bit bigger. So we have this veheveti, but it seems to be this veheveti is kind of like on its own. Okay, so we have ourselves 4 cups, and then based on the 4 lashonot, but there kind of is this 5th lashon. But interestingly enough, there kind of is a 5th cup of wine. If you open up the Gemara in Pesachim, it's Pesachim Kakuf Yurchet Amar Aleph, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Chamishi Gomer Alav et Halel, Vomer Halel Agadol, Divrei Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon says that on the 5th cup of wine, you have to say the Halel Agadol. So come along the Mefarshim and they say, what are they talking about? The fifth cup of wine? And a bunch of them cross out the word Chamishi and change it to Revi'i. Says, no, it's a ta'ut over here. Really, it's supposed to say 4. It's 4 cups of wine, not 5. It's a mistake. But others say, no. Maybe there is a fifth. Maybe somebody didn't drink enough. They needed a little bit more to drink. They wanted a fifth cup. And they try to find all these explanations. Can you have a fifth cup? Should you pour one but not drink it? Should you pour one and drink it? Is it optional? And there's I don't want to get into halachot. But if you open up the Rishonim, the Rif, the Rambam, you open up all the different Mefarshim, and it's not clear. Can you have a fifth cup? And even if you have the fifth cup, can you drink it? Can you not drink it? And some say, let's relate this fifth cup and call that the Kos Shel Eliyahu. Now, the Kos Shel Eliyahu, some say, why is it called Kos Shel Eliyahu? Because we know all the svekot, all those halachic questions that are undetermined, that we're not sure what the right answer is. Are we allowed to drink the fifth cup? Can we not drink the fifth cup? So in all of those cases, we're going to wait till Eliyahu Navi comes, and then we're going to ask Eliyahu Navi, and he's going to answer up those questions. So maybe it's called the Kos Shel Eliyahu, because he's going to let us know, what do we do with this Gemara? Do we have a fifth cup? Are we allowed to drink a fifth cup? So that's one approach. But then there's another more mystical approach that maybe this cup of Eliyahu actually corresponds to Eliyahu being the one's going to be Vaser, the Mashiach coming, hinting to the Geulah Shlema, and that might also hint at that fifth language of Geulah, that one that we don't do in our regular Seder, that we're not drinking at our regular Seder, but that's the Veheveti Etchem El Haaretz. This is a Kadosh Baruch Hu bringing us into the land of Israel. So the fifth cup kind of corresponds to this fifth language of Geulah that applies directly to coming to Eretz Yisrael. Now there's another hidden fifth. So here says Rabbi Gladstein, say many others, that, when you look at our Manishtana, so we have ourselves the one big question, why is this night different than all other nights? And then we have 4 examples. But the truth is, these 4 examples weren't always the examples that were used, because there's another example in the older school, older Haggadot. They found an old one in Cairo that had this based on older Chazals, that one of the questions was, on all of the nights we eat boiled and cooked as well as barbecued, but tonight we only do tzli esh. We only do it grilled and barbecued. So the question is, why is this night different than all the nights? But we know that nowadays we don't eat the tzli esh. We don't eat anywhere the barbecue, and we don't grill it on Pesach because we don't have a Beit HaMikdash. So we cut out that question, replace that question with a different question about the dipping, and the whole different thing we do nowadays. But if you add that question back in, we have ourselves 5 questions. And if we add that question back in, well, when B'ezrat Hashem are we going to add that question back in? Again, it's a hint a little bit towards the Geulah. It's a hint towards the future when we're going to have a Beit HaMikdash rebuilt, and we can bring back that question. Now, I was also thinking, we mentioned a couple of months ago, actually, in one of our Divrei Torah, that we know about the famous idea that there's 4 galuyot, that we have 4 primary exiles. But then we mentioned there's kind of like a 5th hidden exile, the Galut Yishmael. It's kind of there, it's kind of not there. It might have, the 4th one might have melded into the 5th one. But again, we have this concept, whether it comes to Geulah or whether it comes to Galut, that there is this 5, but it's like not a complete 5. It's there, but it's kind of not there. Also another example they bring down is that in our Haggadah, and in the big bulk section where we start explaining what took place in Egypt. So our Haggadah borrows from the Psukim in Parashat Ki Tavo, and we spoke a couple years ago that why do we take from Ki Tavo? We take from Psukim and Sefer Devarim that speak about the Bikurim, the first fruits that we bring every year that are grown. We bring it to Yerushalayim, and then we bring it to the Kohen, and we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we start with a history lesson of Arami Oved Aviv, Vayered Mitzrayim, and we talk about the slavery in Egypt and the eventual redemption in Egypt, and then eventually we were able to make it to the land of Israel. We planted our trees, we have our fruit, and thank you HaKadosh Baruch Hu for these fruit. So it's a whole thank you ceremony that takes place in Parashat Ki Tavo. So our Haggadah, rather than taking psukim from Shemot as the main psukim, they're going to take the main psukim from the story of the Bikurim, because our Haggadah is all about saying thank you, and then bring in the Shemot psukim to explain the thank you, because really what's taking place on the Pesach night was a big thank you ceremony to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But interestingly enough, if they were borrowing the psukim from the Ki Tavo, so they borrowed 4 out of 5 psukim. You had the 4 psukim speaking about the actual slavery and the redemption from Egypt, but then there was a 5th pasuk which was left out of our Haggadah. And what's the 5th pasuk? So says the parasha over there, Vayivienu el hamakom hazeh, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us to this great place, Vayiten lanu et haaretz hazot, eretz zavat halav udvash, and He brought us to a land flowing with milk and honey. Shtabach Shem Alad. The 5th pasuk is again that Geulah, that redemption, that we're making it to the land of Israel, the land flowing with milk and honey. Now that's not part of the Haggadah story, because the Haggadah story, the major focus is the actual leaving of Egypt, the slavery, and being set free. And truthfully, it's also a lot of the nusach that we have was put together after the Beit HaMikdash was already destroyed and after we were put back in exile as well. So to start talking about the coming to the land of Israel and the Hashem bring us to the land of Israel wasn't as appropriate. We're off in Galut already. So this fifth pasuk is not part of our Haggadah. So that's another missing. It's another hidden five. And another hidden five. We know the other famous four in the Haggadah is the four sons. And so I saw a beautiful idea that there actually is also supposed to be a fifth son. So I saw Rabbi Sachs, he quotes the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe speaks about the fifth son being the son who doesn't make it to the Seder. That we have ourselves our Chacham, our Rasha, our Tam, our She'eno L'Derishol. They're at least connected enough. Even the Rasha is connected enough to show up and be there at the Seder to fight with us. But there's a fifth son who's kind of like lost. He's kind of gone. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe apparently writes as well that when Bnei Yisrael leave Hamushim, we left 1/5. But the Hamushim, again, the Hamesh, it's hinting to the fact that we're missing some kids. That not everybody makes it out. Not everybody makes it to the Seder. And there is this concept. We have that fifth cup of wine for that son who's at Hashem. One day will make it to the Seder. So that's how Rabbi Sachs learns it. Rabbi Gladstein learns a little bit differently. He says, who's the fifth son? He says the fifth son is a tzaddik. Because we normally think, we have a Rasha and then we have a Chacham. And we kind of conflate the Chacham with the tzaddik. His same thing. He says, no. Says Rabbi Gladstein, it's not the same thing. And he quotes an Alshich, says the Alshich, that if you take the Rasha, take the evil son, what do we do? How do we teach the evil sons? We don't start explaining to him all the psukim. He's too much chutzpah there. Rather, what do? Haket shinav, blunt his teeth. He says if you take the name Rasha is Gematria 570, and then you blunted his teeth, so you remove the Shinab, you get rid of the teeth. Teeth is Gematria, Shinab is Gematria 340. 570 minus 340 is 204 Gematria Tzaddik. Meaning the goal actually is to create that Tzaddik. The goal is to convert that Rasha into a tzaddik, and that's the missing person from the Seder. And he actually quotes Rabbi Reisman. Rabbi Reisman writes that one of the earliest Ma'aseh Avot Simon Labanim for Pesach, one of the earlier stories we spoke in the past this year about Sarah and Avraham being Ma'aseh Avot Simon Labanim for the Pesach. Sarah is busy baking the matzahs, and Avraham with the fiery furnace is why we're grilling up the meat. But we have another story about a Pesach night before the actual Pesach in the story of Yitzchak. The night that Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav, and so says Rabbi Reisman, he was trying to do what we're saying here, convert the Rasha into a tzaddik, this Haket Shinav. He was trying to take the Esav HaRasha and turn him into a tzaddik. Now, ultimately, Rivka understood it's not going to happen. It's very bad. This is the bracha of the tal, the morida tal. This is the parnasah, the gashmiyut. Yaakov needs to get it too, and she saves the day and gets the bracha for us, the Jewish people. But it seems to be, says Rabbi Reisman, that Yitzchak's original intent was to try to convert Esav through this bracha into that tzaddik. This concept of haket shinav, go from a rasha gematria to a tzaddik. Now, interestingly, there actually appears to be a little bit more of a hidden Esav in our story as well, because we know the Pesach Galut, it's all surrounding the prophecy of the 400. We're supposed to have 400 years of slavery. Now, 400 is Esav's number. Why? Because we know that Esav comes with 400 men to attack Yaakov. When he hears that Yaakov is coming back, he was still so angry all those years later for Yaakov taking the bracha on that Pesach night. So Esav is now coming with his 400 men to try to get his bracha back. Now, actually, I saw even more. I saw Dvar Torah this past week from Rav Daniel Baron. So he actually writes that the Esav 400 connection, it's even stronger than just the 400 men. He says, we know the famous pasuk, Kol Kol Yaakov, Vayadayim Yedei Esav, that Yaakov is symbolized by his voice, by his prayer, by his tefillah, by his Vayizakel Hashem, while Esav is symbolized the Yedei Esav, the hands of Esav. Says this Rabbi Baron, Yedei Esav is Gematria 400. Also, Esav we know is compared to Kash. Kash meaning straw. He said that he's compared to Kash, and then Yaakov and Yosef together, we have the flame and the fire. They come together to burn down the Kash, to burn away the hay, the straw of Esav. Kash is also Gematria 400. He also brings down a midrash over there that there's a story of the Kash coming on the camel's back, which kind of also symbolizes the camels coming from Egypt, coming from Hagar, Yishmael, because Esav's gonna go to marry a wife from Yishmael. So you have the camel carrying the Kash. So it's kind of the hidden Esav, I guess, being connected to the whole Mitzrayim story. Okay, so says Rabbi Gladstein, we left Chamushim. So he learns Chamushim as meaning we left with the hidden fives. That throughout Pesach night we appear to have these hidden fives. We have the four on the surface, 4 questions, 4 cups of wine, 4 lashonot of Geulah, but in the background, there's a hidden 5. When you open up the story, you look a little bit deeper, there's some kind of 5, maybe some kind of the 4 has to be changed into a 5, whether it's through the galuts, like we mentioned, whether it's through the sons, but there's some kind of a hidden secret 5, a secret chamesh throughout, and that secret chamesh, that hidden 5, seems to be hinting to the Geulah, to Eretz Yisrael, to the Beit HaMikdash. So now, I was thinking, maybe this can take us back to our Rebbe Akiva, because it seems to be, what do we know about Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva is the one who symbolizes the future. He symbolizes all the tikkunim. He's the one that, he's mentioned Yitzchak wants to try to make the change. Yitzchak is the korban that's always in the future, and he's the Olal Hashem. Well, Rabbi Akiva kind of lives in that level as well, because once the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, everybody else is upset, and they're miserable, they're mourning, and Rabbi Akiva, he does the Yitzchak. He's the one that laughs. He's tzochek. He's metzachek right now. He's the one that's laughing, because he realizes, oh my God, the prophecies are coming true. It's going to be destroyed. We're going to have a galut, but that galut is going to be a means to get to a geula. And he could already see the Beit HaMikdash being rebuilt. That's the level Rabbi Akiva is reaching in life. He understands the hidden five and where the hidden five is going to. And that's why I'm thinking maybe if we go back to our story by the miracles of the sea. So what took place? So we started off with Rabbi Yossi's opinion in the beginning. So he's the simple opinion. 10 in Egypt, 50 by the sea. It's only by the sea that we're going to get to the koach of the 5 to see this great revelation, the Sha'anun, the 50. Only by the sea we're going to get to that kind of level. Okay, fine. Awesome. Then we're going to get ourselves to Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer we already spoke about. He's the 4. He's the koach of the Ehiyeh. We already spoke about that. And then maybe the Anut TV can say, what is Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva, he's the one that symbolizes the 5. So therefore, he's the multiplier of the 5. So he already is living steps ahead of things. So already in Mitzrayim, he says there's 50 makot. We already reached the level of Sha'anun in the slavery. When you have destruction, Rabbi Akiva already sees the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the destruction, in the pain and the suffering. So even while those 10 makot, which he says are 50 makot, are already taking place, he's already living the level of 50, already by the makot. But then when he gets to the Yam Suf, Yishtabach Shemalad, we're going to get to 250 miracles, because his multiplier is going to be 5, because he lives in the realm of 5. Now, Rabbi Akiva, we say, lives with Mashiach. So I actually read a wild idea once that, we have all the rabbis are hanging out in Bnei Brak at Rabbi Akiva's house. Why are they hanging out at Rabbi Akiva's house? So I heard once because Rabbi Akiva was the big spiritual leader of Bar Kochva, the Bar Kochva rebellion. We thought maybe Mashiach could come right now. It could be Mashiach already. And they're all hanging out in a hidden room. That's why the students have to find him in the morning. Again, it's a wild Dvar Torah that I saw on this. But Rabbi Akiva, he's living with Mashiach so much that he's even trying to make that rebellion take place. And that's why they're all hanging out with him in his house to talk about the plans of how are they going to fight back against the Romans. Okay. So we're saying that Rabbi Akiva symbolizes this level of already being with the Mashiach, already seeing the Mashiach. We actually mentioned a couple of weeks ago by Nadav and Avihu, we gave a nice Dvar Torah about the sun and the moon, that we have two different avodas in Hashem. We have the moon, which is considered to be a sort of lesser avodah. Hashem told the moon to make yourself smaller, and that was the symbol of Yoshua. Yoshua is the Areach, Yoshua was the Levana, but Moshe Rabbeinu, the great Moshe Rabbeinu, he's compared to the Hama, to the sun, to the Shemesh. Rabbi Akiva is also on this level of the Shemesh, on this level of the sun. So I mentioned the idea over to Rabbi Khan. Rabbi Khan said something unbelievable. We know that in the middle of the night, at Chatzot Alayla, in the middle of the night, Paro runs out in his pajamas and he's telling the Jewish people, okay, now you guys are free, get out of here. And there's like a big, it's a little bit murky inside Chazal. Did we leave at Chatzot? Did we leave really quickly in the middle of the night? Or did we show real freedom? And did we wait until the sun rose in the morning and we left in the morning? It was kind of like machloket. Did we leave at Chatzot when there's a full moon, the Yareach? Or did we wait until the sun and we left when the sun came out? What do we know about Rabbi Akiva, says Rabbi Khan? That Rabbi Akiva, he's the one that's learning the Haggadah all night long until the sun rises in the morning, until it's time to say Kriyat Shema. It's now the morning. Rabbi Akiva lives in the times of the Mashiach. He lives in the times of the full light. He lives in the times of the sun. Now, interestingly, we have a similar argument when it comes to the Korban Pesach. By the Korban Pesach, in the Gemara Pesachim, Daf Kuf Kaf, Amud Bet, there's a machloket. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says you have to eat the Korban Pesach according to from the Torah Midoraita, you have until Chatzot. Rabbi Akiva says, no, fine, Midrabanan ad Chatzot. But really, halacha is you have the whole night. Meaning Rabbi Akiva is willing to push it the whole night and make it until the morning. Rabbi Akiva, just like Moshe Rabbeinu, is corresponding to the sun. Now, interestingly, though, I did recently read a different Dvar Torah that Rabbi Daniel Baron, where he takes the sun and moon in a slightly different angle that we've been saying right now. I actually want to thank my friend Yitzi Turner for showing this to me, and also for adding a little bit of his own insights that we're going to say over here as well. He says, because from a different angle, Bnei Israel are normally compared to the moon. The Chodesh Zelachem, the first month, the first mitzvah that's given to the Jewish people is that of the moon, or the Levana. We're the ones that are in charge of the Zman when it comes to the moon. That's our avodah. But on the other hand, when it comes to the sun, that's something we can't mess with. Shabbat, the regular week, we can't mess with that. The sun is, it symbolizes kind of like the static world. And the pasuk says, Ein chadash tachta shamesh. There's nothing new under the sun. There's no chadash when it comes to the sun. But when it comes to the moon there is chadash, there's hitchadshut, there's renewal, there's chodesh, there's a new month. So you have the chadash, you have the chodesh. It's all about the ups and downs, the waxing and wanings, but there's also hitchadshut, and there's also a direction that ultimately the avodah of us, the Jewish people, is to be like that moon and realize that we are moving somewhere. There is renew, there is this newness, there is this hitchadshut, that ultimately things aren't the same in history. Things are moving in a path, and B'ezras Hashem, that path will take us towards Mashiach. But I want to go back to one last 5. So there's one last 5 we find in the Haggadah. We find the 5 rabbis who come to celebrate together at the Pesach Seder. We find them all coming to Rabbi Akiva's house, and it says Maaseh Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, Shehu Mesubim B'nei Barak. And you have these 5 rabbis. They come to sit in B'nei Barak. Now, interestingly, the commentators note that besides for the B'nei Barak is Rabbi Akiva's town, so they all went to Rabbi Akiva's house. 4 of these rabbis, they say, were miuchasim. They come from important pedigree, important lineage. They're Kohanim, they're Leviim. 4 are like this, but Rabbi Akiva, he's the son of the converts. He's like a little bit of a different level. But we have ourselves the 5 hanging out, interestingly enough, at Rabbi Akiva's house, and they're all Bnei Brak, and they were busy learning the story of the Seder of the Mitziat Mitzrayim in depth. Until the students came to them and said, "Guys, you learned about this Yetziat Mitzrayim, but now it's already morning. The sun came up. It's time for us to pray. Say the Kriyat Shema of the Shaharit." Now, what are they doing in Rabbi Akiva's house? We already mentioned the wild pshat that they're having some kind of political meetings, but the more classic and the more meaningful explanation of what are they doing in Rabbi Akiva's house, because if they're in Bnei Brak and they're not in Yerushalayim, so probably the Beit HaMikdash already has been destroyed at this point. And if there's no Beit HaMikdash, now you can be in any city. So why would they choose Rabbi Akiva's city? Again, he's not the most meyuchas. He's not. I read once a different idea that they were all fundraising and they just came off the ports of Yafo, and that's the closest city, Bnei Brak. Okay, but a little deeper. Why then Rabbi Akiva's house? Because Rabbi Akiva is the one that symbolizes the Geulah. He's the one that symbolizes the hope for the Geulah. He's the one that could already see the Geulah. He sees Mashiach. He lives on the level of the 5. He already saw the Sharnun, the 50 Makot, already back in the slavery of Egypt itself. He could feel it. And therefore, all the other rabbis, they need to get that chizuk. It's Rabbi Akiva, the one that can metzachek at the destroyed Beit HaMikdash, because he knows that Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to save us. He's the one that can give it all up. And the biggest pain and suffering, we all know at the end of his life, as the Romans are going to be killing him, what's he going to be doing? He's going to be crying out Kriyat Shema with the greatest simcha. They can finally fulfill the mitzvah he's been waiting his whole life to say. So his neshama could leave on the word Echad. Rabbi Akiva is the one holding on that level. They want the chizuk. This is the best rabbi's house to go to. And eventually, what takes place? They learn and they go through the story until eventually what happened? It became the time for the Shema. Literally, it sounds like the sun rose. The students came in, it's time for Shacharit. But maybe you could also learn as well symbolically. They had gone through the whole story and now they finally felt it. They finally felt, oh my God, the sun is rising. Kriyat Shema, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. They can feel that emunah Kadosh Baruch Hu, that things are going to be great. We spoke about Esav being the Kash. Now we got to our Kash, our Kriyat Shema. We made it to that level. Chag Sameach.